Hello and welcome back to I Helped Make That. Before we begin, of course, we have to get the Anchor ad out of the way. So, have you ever wanted to create a podcast? If so, try Anchor today because Anchor is the easiest podcasting platform to use. All you do is sign up for an account. Then you can post on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those platforms. So if you want to create a podcast, try Anchor today. Now, thankfully, for the last movie of Happy Madison Month, we're actually going to be talking about something good. I am, of course, talking about the Netflix movie from last year, Hustle, with one of the movie's actors, Andrea Sooch. Thanks for coming on, Andrea.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now, ho- Andrea, how did you get the audition for Hustle in the first place?
So that was an interesting and special story because, the world shut down in 2020 March. And this was the first audition that happened after the pandemic started. So I auditioned for Hustle in late September 2020. So the very first audition after 9 months or 8 months of not having anything. It was a self-tape audition because everything was still shut down. So they sent me some sites. It was half a page dialogue, and then they asked me to riff on things in German. So it was super fun. It was a Wednesday. I got the offer on Friday, and I was in a car on Saturday. So it was very, very quick. And it was exciting and terrifying at the same time because I did not leave my house for months. So I was like, oh my God, I have to go out of the house. What's going to happen here? So I will never forget this shoot because it was so special. And for me, it was the re-entry to acting again, the re-entry that movies are starting up again. So it's incredibly meaningful to me.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that it was like your first movie, you know, during the pandemic. So was there any like were you a little nervous to audition for it? Or like were you thinking, "Oh, should I do this? Could I possibly catch COVID? Are they ready?" Like were you a little nervous about it before?
Um, I don't. That's such a good question. Yes, I was. I was. So I'm like, if I get it, great. If I don't get it, probably it's the best. So I was kind of on the fence, and that was the first time. Back then, it was no home tests. It was no PCR test. So you had to go to a testing facility. So they picked me up in the car and they drove me to Philadelphia. And then I had to wait for a test. And I had no idea. I was never tested for COVID before. So I was terrified that what if I have it? That I, I have it was really terrifying. So um yeah, I'm thinking back because it was such a great question you asked. I was terrified and I was excited and I was fearful and I wanted to do it and I didn't want to do it. And I was afraid to leave the house and so excited to leave the house. It was so many emotions present in me. And then, I just said it, you know what, let's just do it. It's just going to be fun. They know what they're doing. I'm sure everybody will be safe. Back then, it was in the contract that you had to be in quarantine for 8 days. So I knew that what would have been a day shoot back in the days, it's going to be a 10-day shoot because I have to go there and be in quarantine for a week. So, So it was definitely something I will always remember. It was a very, very special experience, and I had a fantastic time. It was like a retreat. I was in a
Yeah.
hotel for 8 days. It was great.
Wow. What did you do in the hotel?
Well, Netflix have a sense of humor because you had to do the safety procedure videos, and one thing they suggested to watch Netflix in your hotel room. So that was really funny. So I was watching a lot of Netflix. They put it on the TV, so you didn't have to have an account. They also encouraged us to go and take walks outside. So we were in Philadelphia and right on the riverbank. So I was taking walks with the lovely gentleman who played my husband. His name is Peter Linari, and we got very close. So we did daily walks, and we could go outside, sit in restaurants outside. They asked us not to go inside to minimize the possibility to get sick. There was a nurse who was coming to the hotel room to test us every other day. So we were very well taken care of, and I felt incredibly safe.
Good. Now, for people who may not have seen the movie,
Mhm.
or for people who may have seen the movie, in the final cut, Andrea, you only have like one shot and no lines. But as you said, you originally did have lines. Did you have more scenes than what was shown in the final cut?
Well, the final cut was just like a flash in the montage. It was one scene with Adam Sandler, and it was so much fun. Oh my God. We had so much fun. Like we had the line, but we were improvising around it. Jeremiah, our director, let us do this. And again, when Adam Sandler tells you that you are funny, I mean, I can't think of a better experience. It was so great. And I understand why it was cut. It didn't fit in the direction the movie was going. It was a very funny scene about the Kentucky Fried Chicken that my character was pissed that he's eating chicken. And I was like kind of bullying my husband to tell him not to eat chicken, and he didn't. So it was a funny little bit, you know? And I understand why it didn't make it to the movie because this whole sequence was setting up the premise that he's traveling so much. So it was no space for that joke. Would I wish it would have stayed in? Of course, it was a scene with Adam Sandler, right? But do I understand why it wasn't? Absolutely. And I'm also super grateful that I'm in it. My name is on the credits. I am in the cast. I'm very, very grateful that to some extent I could stay associated with the movie.
Yeah. now your scene takes place in an airplane.
Yeah.
Did you shoot in an actual airplane?
No, we were in studio in Philadelphia, and it was set up there.
Oh, cool. So it was like a soundstage then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was wondering, I was wondering like, what was it like to shoot in an airplane? But now that makes sense. He didn't actually have an airplane, though. That actually looked like a real airplane.
Looked
So
amazing.
yeah,
Looked
the set
amazing.
designers did a good job there.
Everybody did a fantastic job there. And that was the first day of the movie.
Well, that was like the first day of filming.
That was the first day of the shoot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was also interesting when I went to base camp the first time to do the costume fitting. It was surreal. We were all joking, like, are we shooting season 2 of Chernobyl? I mean, people were in hazmat suits with face shields. It was red zone, yellow zone. Everybody all shielded up with like gloves, and it was really very different. And all the makeup and the hair people needed to get used to work with the mask on, work with the gloves on, work with the face shield. So it was definitely a learning experience for everybody, and it was fascinating to be part of. Like, this experience was really something very unique and incredibly amazing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. So, anyway, now that we've, talked about the filming of the movie, in many ways, this movie, as the title says, is about hustling. It's literally called Hustle. It's sort of about how when you're in sort of a not like a regular what's considered a regular job. Like there's always sort of the new hustle. In this case, it's a hustle in the career of sports. Like Adam Sandler's character, he's like basically I don't know what the exact name of this person is, but he's like the person who's he's a talent scout. He's
Right.
the base he's a talent scout for basketball, but he wants to sort of move up and become the assistant coach, which is sort of like, definitely I'm sure like someone who's in that position in sports can relate to it, but it's also probably just relatable for people in creative endeavors of any field. Like or there's always that next stepping stone that you want to achieve,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like for like for actors, you know, you want to get bigger parts and get to a point where you can live off of acting. Writers, you want to get to that part where you can, sell your script or sell your book and, make enough money writing.
Right.
You know, same thing with directors. Like it's a like wouldn't you agree that it's sort of like this movie sort of portrays like the realistic yeah, sort of portrays just sort of how realistic it is to always have that feeling that you could have something more in your career.
Um, I think the beauty about the movie that everybody can interpret it however it resonates with their own life. So I'm not sure about the more, but the fulfillment, how it resonated with me. And I know absolutely nothing about sports, but I don't know if you've seen Field of Dreams, like a classic movie. Do you remember that movie? Like older movie.
I haven't seen Field of Dreams, but I have seen Bull Durham.
So that's not necessarily about baseball. This movie is not necessarily about basketball, right?
Hmm.
So for me, it was kind of like a metaphor for the game, right? Or the hustle, or as
Hmm.
I would call it, the alignment. Because look at how many things needed to happen for both to get acquainted with Adam Sandler's character, right? He had to be at the right place in the same city. He had to be playing. He had to, so it's like so many. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen the Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
I have seen that movie.
Yeah. So you remember when she has the accident?
Hmm.
And then there is this monologue that if the driver wouldn't have finished the coffee, if she wouldn't have forgot the key, if that car would have parked, so it's so many moving parts needs to happen for anything to occur. That for me, I was looking at this movie that what are the alignment that needed to happen? Uh, and then what was the input that the player had to put in to be successful? And the support system around it and the
Hmm.
challenges around it. So I'm sure I loved the movie, and it wasn't a funny movie, right?
Hmm.
So it was kind of like for me like a Rocky kind of a movie. I think they even made a reference, when you're running up on the stairs in Philadelphia. So for me, it was how can I maximize doing what I love to do, and how can I make a living from what I love to do? Which I see your point very relevant for actors
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, I think it's very relevant again for anyone just to try to achieve their dreams in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we ask 5 people or 10 people, probably everybody gonna look it through the lens of what's going on in their lives. That's why it's such a beautiful movie, because it's so close to everybody, depending on what you're going through.
Hmm.
So since we're talking about acting, and that's what you wanted to, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't call it a hustle. I would call it the alignment. Like, it needs to be aligned. That part needs to be written. That agent has to see that, has to submit me to casting. The casting has to, call me in. I have to do a job to upload. I have to be available. Then they need to take a look at it. Everybody has to agree. So it's so many moving parts to it that, it's not just my hustle, it's the whole big puzzle piece of the whole picture. You know what I'm saying? This is how
Yeah,
I'm looking at it.
yeah, I do. And like, as the movie showed, like Adam Sandler's character, Howard, like he was a part of someone else's hustle, but then he actually quits the team he was working for halfway through, and he sort of starts working with his own hustle, getting the guy signed on and becoming a major player. But then, like, he still has friends sort of like helping him out and getting, his client to be, where he wants his client to be.
Yeah, so it's teamwork.
Hmm.
And he reached out for support.
Hmm.
People have to know, if you are an entrepreneur, I'm not. Like, I wouldn't want my own company. I wouldn't want, like, I want to work for people who let me be creative, but I never had that desire to write my own movie or produce my own movie, or even as a therapist have my own private practice. I'm working with a group practice. So it also depends what's your dream, and it's different for everybody. And also, let's not forget that in the movie they almost quit, right?
Hmm.
Like, it
That's
was
true.
so close. They almost quit. So literally he was turning back from the airport.
Hmm.
So just have this possibility that maybe it's not happening now the way I want to, but also entertain the possibility that it will happen. And then, do I turn back from the airport, or what do I do when that opportunity presents itself? So it had so many layers. I really, really loved. I loved it. I watched it on the big screen. I went to the cinemas before it dropped on Netflix, and it was amazing. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you who watching, I strongly invite you to. It's really worth seeing.
Yeah, and it is a perfect way to close out Happy Madison Month. But before we end, Andrea, do you have anything to plug?
Me,
Hmm.
plug meaning
As
promote?
in, yeah, promote.
Nope. I'm just happy to be here and talk with you all. And I hope that whoever listened got something out of it that was worth the time to listen to.
All right. Well, that was I Help Make That, and I'll see you all later.
They ain't got no muscle, no hustle, no backbone. I stand alone, not tripping. Just saying, I'm different. Ain't hanging on to the coattails of the next man. Passport in my left hand, thinking that you are next. Heck, oh, you ain't holding your breath, man.